Well, welcome to Daily Devos. My name is Raymond Gregory, and we upload and stream Devos at 7 a.m. every weekday. And so be sure to subscribe, and you can join this journey through the Bible. And right now we're in 1 Corinthians, and we'll be in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, starting in verse 12 today. And as I was reading it, I was reminded of these two dogs that I had when I was a kid. Actually, they're my brother's dogs, but they became the family dogs. And they were called Dusty and Buster. They were boxers. And it really gave me a heart for boxers. So if you ever need a dog that's really good with kids, boxers are totally good with kids. And Dusty and Buster knew they were not allowed on the couches. And so my dad was very stern about it, kept them in line from sleeping on the couches. Well, one night we all went to bed, and I don't know what got into their head, but they thought, you know what, we're going to sneak on the couch and sleep on the couch. Now, maybe they're doing this every night. They're just smart enough to wake up early and duck out. Well, my dad must have woken up early or something one morning, so he walks out and he sees the dogs sleeping on the couch, and he's like, they know they're not allowed on the couch. And so he sneaks up really, really quietly, gets down by the dogs, and he says, "What are you doing?" And he screams at them, and they freak out, and they run out, and they run, and it was a pretty funny moment, and it's a moment I always kind of keep in the back of my mind. And now that I have dogs, I realize, man, dogs are a little bit sneaky, and they try to get away with stuff. But, those couches were just too tempting for those dogs. And so my dad actually had to start either putting them outside or close the sliding door to the living room so they wouldn't sleep on the couches. Well, I bring all that up to say that today we're going to be reading a little bit about temptations and how to overcome and stay strong and stand strong against temptations with the Lord's help in a Devo I've titled, Stay Off the Couch. All right, so we're going to pick up in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. We're going to be talking about temptations and how to overcome them. And so it starts in verse 12, reading from the New Living Translation. If you think you are standing strong, be careful not to fall. The temptations in your life are no different from what others experience. Okay, so I have 3 points for you, and we're just going to go through them as we read. And so the first point is this. In trying to overcome temptation, you need to hang out with the right dogs. You need to hang out with the right dogs. Now, you might hang out with some people that have struggled with similar temptations as you, and you think, well, they're a lot weaker than I am, and I'm a little bit strong. And so Paul's warning them against this and warning us against this in verse 12. You may think you are standing strong, but be careful not to fall. And you might get around some other people who are a little bit weaker, and my experience is that they're going to bring you down. I mentioned my two boxers as a kid. Well, I have a boxer now, and her name is Jules. Jules Heart Flowers. And you probably guessed I named her. No, my daughter named her. And she's always been really good and minded her boundaries. And until we got a second dog who did not mind the boundaries. And she started to learn. And that little dog, even though Bose is older, that little dog corrupted her a little bit. And so she started chewing on things and going places she was not allowed. Listen, the strongest among the weak is still weak. I've always heard, if a bear's chasing a group of people, you don't have to be the fastest runner. You just have to be the second slowest runner, because the bear is going to catch the slowest runner and be occupied there, and you'll be scot-free. But the problem is, in temptation, there's more than one bear. And so even if you're stronger than the weakest person that you're hanging out with, that person is going to fall, and then it's going to drag you down, and then here comes another bear, and they're going to get you. And so again, you need to be hanging out with the right dogs. You need to be hanging out with the right people. You need to be hanging out with people that don't tease bears. Okay? So, and it goes on to say in verse 14, and God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than what you can stand. When you are tempted, he will show you a way out so you can endure. Again, I mentioned my dogs and my dogs that I have now. They never went on the couch when my dad was home. They never went near that couch, especially after he yelled at him and scared the heck out of him. They never went near that couch when he was home. And so the same applies to us in our lives. The more time you spend with Jesus, the more time you spend with the Father, and you're worshiping God, the less time you have to get in trouble. You know, I read a statistic that juvenile crimes are the highest between 2 and 6 p.m. weekdays. Why are juvenile crimes the highest between 2 and 6 p.m.? Well, it's because school lets out around 2 and parents don't get home until 6 p.m. And so kids are kind of left on their own. And unsupervised teens, the statistic said that they're 21% more likely to commit crimes absent their parents. And so the same goes for us. We are more vulnerable to the attacks of temptation and the enemy when we are absent our Heavenly Father, when we are not spending regular time in the Word, prayer, and worship, and setting our mind on things that He has taught us and told us and wanting to please Him. And so, again, make sure Dad's always home. Make sure Christ is always present in your life, and you'll be less likely to give in to those temptations because He will strengthen you in it. So, verse 23, you say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. Don't be concerned for your own good, but for the good of others as well. And so, third and final point to avoid and not give in to temptation is this. You know, there's some rooms you just can't enter. There's some rooms you just can't enter. The same way we had to lock those dogs out of that room because they couldn't handle it. They wanted to sleep on the couch, so we had to lock the dogs out. Some rooms, you know, when you go into there, some situations, you know that once you enter them, you're just going to be hit with temptation. And there are some people that you're going to hang out with that will lead you to those rooms. And believe it or not, you might be one of those people that is leading others into the wrong room. And that's why Paul says, don't be concerned with your own good, but with the good of others as well. You say, I'm allowed to do everything, but not everything is good for you. I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. If you're not allowed on the couch, it's probably good to stay out of the living room. So to recap, how do we keep from giving into temptation? Number one, we need to hang out with the right dogs. The strongest among the weak is still weak. If a bear is chasing a group, you don't have to be the fastest. You just need to be the second slowest. But then again, there's more than one bear. So maybe it's just better to hang out with people that don't tease bears. Hang out with people that aren't going to draw you into temptation. Number two, just make sure Dad's always home. Make sure Dad's always home. The more time you spend with the Lord, the less time you have to get in trouble. And so keep Christ at the center of your life, and you'll be less likely to give into those temptations because He is guarding you against those things. And then finally, remember that there are some rooms you just can't enter. And not just for your own good, but you shouldn't be bringing other people into situations that they'll be tempted as well. That is what I have for you this morning on how you just need to stay off the couch. So if this Devo blessed you, maybe give it a like below, share it, and send it to somebody that you might be blessed as well to partake in it. And then if you want to join us every day, if you're not already subscribed, be sure to subscribe. And then maybe shoot me in the comments some ways that you use to avoid temptation, or some ways and some verses that the Lord has placed in your life to give you a foundation to keep you from, sleeping on the couch. So I love you guys. Be sure to send me some prayer requests because I go on prayer walks about 3 times a day. And I will catch you tomorrow in the next video.